Hi there, Malcolm here with my 79th Booktube video, and today I'll be bringing you October's wrap-up. I've got 10 books to go through, so let's get cracking. First up was my book of the month, The Martian by Andy Weir. Man gets trapped on Mars and has to try and survive. I've done a separate review of this one. I'll leave a link to that below, so go check that out please, if you're interested to know what I thought of that. When I finished that, I then read Bill and Ted Save the Universe. Another zany adventure following our two favourite idiots. In this one, they have the key event of wild stallions going on the tour of the universe to change galactic civilization, thereby creating the future utopia. As usual, things don't go smoothly. There are individuals who want to stop them, as well as other things that crop up here and there. A lot of good fun, doesn't take itself seriously at all, and there was actually a pretty good plot in there too. And the fun artwork style really fits in with the theme as well. Buy it. Following on from that, I then read Starcraft, Queen of Blades by Wyrmberg. This is effectively the novelisation of the Zerg campaign from the original Starcraft game by Blizzard. However, despite the title, it doesn't really follow Kerrigan at all. It does to begin with, but then the focus jumps to James Rayner, and the rest of the story is told pretty much from his point of view. Which I think was a bit of a strange decision, in that James Rayner doesn't really feature that much in the campaign. Furthermore, there are increasingly unlikely scenarios which sees James Rayner in a situation where he can witness or overhear some of the major plot points, which are more or less lifted verbatim from the campaign mission intros. And having been looking forward to reading this for quite a long time now, I was a little bit disappointed, to start with at least. However, just over halfway through, James Rayner finally meets up with a Protoss Tassadar, and things really pick up from then on. In the game, he just somehow starts throwing in with the Protoss for no real apparent reason. This story takes the time to dig a little deeper as to how he comes to be so closely attuned to the Protoss, and will happily fight their fights with them. And my favourite scenes were the ones with Tassadar, Zeratul and James Rayner, more or less just learning each other's histories, a lot of which I found really insightful and interesting. So not quite the focus I thought it was going to be, which may be why I was disappointed initially, but by the time everyone's on Char, the story really picks up, and that final half is really enjoyable. I'll say buy it if you can get hold of a copy. Next up I read Predator Life and Death by Dan Abnett. A few months ago now I read Alien Life and Death, which I didn't really enjoy. I didn't quite follow what was going on. It turned out that was book 3 of the series. Not that there's anything really on there clearly telling you that it was. So I finally managed to get hold of book 1. Hooray. So yes, made a lot more sense. Essentially in this one, some colonial marines are sent to a planet owned by the company to protect their interests, and that there have been reports of looters taking their stuff. The marines get there and find not just the looters, but some predators as well. And to time with book 2, Prometheus, Life and Death, there's the big alien ship from the original Alien film containing a sleeping being. The artwork was pretty gritty and visceral in places. Wasn't to my personal tastes, but it was alright. None of the characters really stood out for me though, which was a bit of a shame. So when they started getting bumped off, I didn't really know or care who it was. Worth reading though. And then another graphic novel I got from the library was Kickass by Mark Miller. A couple of years ago now I saw the film, quite enjoyed it. I briefly flicked through this a couple of times when I saw it in the library. Finally picked it up though, and had a thoroughly enjoyable time with it. I must say that the film did quite an accurate depiction of it in most places, but was in no way nearly as violent as the book. Blimey, they didn't hold anything back with this one. It was bloody enough before even Hit Girl turns up, and then when she does. And then when she does with her slicing and dicing, a lot more red is used. For those who don't know, Kickass is a self-appointed superhero, going by the name of Kickass. So he's a young college student who is into comics and thinks, well, why can't I be a superhero? So he dresses himself up and goes out to fight crime. Is pretty much almost killed, ends up with metal plates in his head. Does he learn his lesson? No, he goes out again, but this time, because of his injuries, he doesn't feel pain quite so badly, and with his metal skull, can take a hell of a lot more punishment than he used to. And then one day, one of his jobs goes particularly wrong, thankfully saved by the rival Hit Girl, a small child wielding 2 massive great blades, who then hacks and slices the entire room to pieces, leaving him unharmed. Due to the nature of the content, there aren't many pages I can display. I've had a good flick through. This is one of the few pages I can get away with. Just give you a sense of the artwork. So witty, gritty, violent, bloody, rude, crude. So teenagers and anyone who's still got a bit of teenager in them somewhere should love this. I did. I found it booktastic. And then after that I read Monster by Michael Grant, technically book 7 of the Gone series. Set 4 years after the events of the final book in the Gone series, Light, the initial lump of rock that fell from space, which caused all the chaos in the first 6 books, was only the forerunner of things to come, and a whole load of other rocks are now on their way. So featuring a group of whole new characters, with a few of the original survivors, this story sees these rocks land on Earth, and what happens when people get hold of them, whether it's the government, other agencies, or individuals. This time there's no dome, so there's none of that survival, starvation, or any of the other things. You know, adults are now around because everyone's here. And whereas before most of the children who got powers simply had the powers, this time people transform into monsters with the powers that they've got. So very much in the scale of Heroes, Marvel Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., X-Men, covering many of the similar themes as well. I had a lot of fun with this one. I don't think it was as good as the main Gone series. Decent follow-up, and I'm looking forward to reading the next book, Villain. And I would say my main critique of this one are the unbalanced powers. I mean, yes, in the series, not everyone had the same level of powers, with Sam and Kane having the most powerful ones, but at least for the most part, everyone who had a power had something pretty useful. In this one, they range from somebody who just turns invisible to somebody who turns into a 50-foot tall lava monster. So, yeah. And following the theme of the Gone series, nice and violent, very dark, and really enjoyable. Buy it. And the next book I finished reading was book 2 of the Twig sequence from the Edge Chronicles by Paul Stewart and Chris Riddle, Storm Chaser. I've been reading this to my younger son. Book 1 was okay. It was more of a bumbling adventure journey, introduction to the world, with no real plot. There was one, but it was barely there. This one had a much better story to it, where Twig joins a group of sky pirates on a quest to go and retrieve some vital storm fracks to stop a giant rock with a city on it from floating away, as you do. Of course, things don't quite go to plan, disaster strikes, and then it's a case of surviving some more weird and wonderful situations. But again, unlike the previous book, which was rather more rambling, there was more of a direction and a focus on this one. And my word, this gets dark. Very early on in the book is a character called Screed Toe Taker, a mass murderer who collects his victims' toes. Now, he's introduced early, not referenced again for a long time until near the end of the book, and you're left wondering, well, what was that all about? That was rather horrific. You then have other stuff that happens. Oh yes, if you get attached to characters, be warned. Paul Stewart only seems to introduce characters so that he can bump them off somehow. You know, for a children's book, this got grim. And then later on he turns up again and he's one of the main threats at the time. And when the revelation about him is revealed, yes, this book is dark. It's dark, people. Filled with Chris Riddle's wonderful artwork. Sometimes they really complement the story, other times they're just there, really. But always worth looking at. And also, because there was more of a direction with this one, the character of Twig actually got developed. So rather than just reacting to stuff, he actually got to make decisions, he became a leader, and you actually get to learn more about the character of Twig rather than just this young lad to whom things happen. We both enjoyed it. I'd say buy it, and we've already started the next one. Next up was my library book of the month, not counting the graphic novels I've got from the library. The Silence by Tim Libben. Written before A Quiet Place, this story does a very similar premise to it. Not that I've seen it, but I know about it. Ali is a young girl who is deaf as a result of a car accident. And her family watch in horror on the news as a swarm of voracious, predatory flying creatures emerges from a recently unsealed underground cavern and then swarms across Europe toward the UK, devouring everything in their path that makes any sound. What follows is a pretty much by numbers post-apocalyptic in the making adventure thriller as we follow this family as they watch the world around them die and everything they know and love get destroyed, eventually. This does take a little time to get going. The creatures don't even reach the UK until over halfway through the book, but I didn't mind that because the suspense and the realism was very good. The attitudes of neighbours and friends was very much along the lines of, well, just live life as normal. Are you going down to the pub this weekend? What do you think of the new single? You know, normal shopping hours. You know, it's all going off somewhere on the far end of Europe. It's not affecting us. And of course, as it starts getting closer, as people start taking a little bit of notice, some depart for sanctuary somewhere, but others still live as if everything's going to be okay. So it's a real mix of attitudes and behaviours, which I feel reflect an accurate representation of how things would actually go down. And as a lot of the story was also told through emails, tweets and news reports, it provided an extra level of validity to the story. It almost felt like when I turned the news on in real life, I would hear more about how these creatures are getting across Prague or whatever. And of course, they do reach the UK, things all do go to hell, and then it is, again, a pretty standard post-apocalyptic survival, you know, bad people, good people, you can't tell which is which, mad people, not to mention the creatures themselves. And of course, because Ali is deaf, the family have learnt how to use sign language, and so they can still communicate quite happily. There are a couple of really obvious beats. You know, the person with cancer does the usual thing that the person with cancer does in these sort of things. And of course, they only have the dog there for one thing only. I knew it was coming, but it was still pretty awful. And also liked how there was a bit more focus on the creatures themselves. A lot of these stories, the creatures are this mysterious thing with pointy teeth and claws. They're going to kill you, that's all you need to know. But we do slowly learn a little bit about the creatures through the family as they learn about them, through observations and reports on the internet, which despite the world going down is the one thing that still remains for the most part. Really enjoyed it, and I would certainly pick it up again, buy it. And I read another library book this month, Torchwood Rift War, which collects the comic strip from the official Torchwood magazine. I never read it, didn't know about it. I enjoyed Torchwood before it went bad, and so it was nice to see the crew all alive and well and on another adventure together. Unfortunately, that was the only thing I really liked about it, as their story was pretty awful. The artwork ranged from issue to issue and was pretty shocking. Entire scenes don't make any sense at all, and I didn't care enough to try and make sense of them, so I was actually quite disappointed. The one saving grace was the mini-story at the back of the book, which sees a crashed spaceship spill its contents all over a beach. The Torchwood team turn up but not quite quick enough, and a souped-up battle motorbike thing has been taken, which had some interesting consequences. That was a lot of fun, and I appreciated the artwork a lot more than that. Boring, nonsensical. And finally, I then read Star Wars X-Wing Rogue Squadron The Phantom Affair by Michael A. Stackpole. It's taken me a little while to read this one, because it clearly states in good reason this is book 2. I couldn't find book 1. Book 1 doesn't exist. You can only get it in the book 1 omnibus, which features a short story and an even shorter story of the events preceding this one. So I've read those online, so I could finally read this one. In this one, Wedge Antilles and his fellow fighter pilots go to a planet, which I'm not going to try and pronounce, there's no vowels in it, to see about buying a special technology. Only to find the Empire is there too, with the same purpose, and their representative is the man that killed Wedge's parents. And of course, the Empire never play above board, so there's sabotage, murder, and double-crossing going on. So it's left to the team to rescue each other and stop the Empire doing what they're doing, before discovering there's an even greater subterfuge plot going on. Not as complicated as it sounds. The characters all feel fleshed out and real, even though very few of them even appeared on the screen, and most of those only blink and you miss them. And I also appreciated how the background aliens just wandering around as extras weren't just the Ithorians and Twi'leks and everything that we keep seeing in every single graphic novel, but also some new ones that don't have their own playing card and action figure. So that was quite nice and made the galaxy feel that little bit bigger. I also like the bright and colourful artwork. Buy it. So there we go. 10 books, not bad for a month. So if you've read any of those, I'd like to know what you thought of them. Or if you've seen The Martian or A Quiet Place, what do you think of those? Or what is your favourite series that follows on from a previous series? So do please let me know in the comment section down below. But as always, if you have nothing nice to say, then please do keep it to yourself. Thank you, and until next time, see you later.